Good morning. Welcome back into the discussion segment. We are discussing, of course, the state of affairs, and this is what's on our table this Monday morning.
We're going bananas.
It's a banana round table.
Well, it's these are fresh matoke from Benji's farm. So over the weekend you were there?
Yes, I was there over the weekend.
So unalima, in other words?
Nalima vitu mingi, including kahawa. And, you know, every Monday, the viewers don't know this, but every Monday, Ayub is always very kind, most kind, to bring us camel milk, which they make us tea, and it's delicious. In fact, I've gained some weight. So I've also been wanting to bring something kurudisha.
But how are you sure that it's Ayub who brings the milk and not me?
Because he's the one who brings
They're not
Because you assume that his camel milk must be coming from his end. I mean, like, really?
So this is called muraru. It's ripe.
Is one of the first, yeah?
They stay green. It's very delicious and very nutritious. And there's a company also close to me called Twiga, which is also creating a lot of jobs, Twiga Foods,
So good.
and is doing a solution to connect the farmer and the market by cutting out a lot of the middlemen. So this is just a sample straight from my farm.
Nice.
For you guys, and for just things we'll be doing in the future. And really let us plow, let us dig, let us grow the economy, let us fix, you know, farming and agriculture. Let's fix agriculture. Wakili was just telling me on air how the locusts are doing a lot of mess in their place in Tigania. So let's get that fixed, let's get that sorted, and let's eat our own sweat, our own soil, and share.
Okay.
That's a good way to start the Monday.
Sure.
Very good Monday. Benjin Dola, senior political commentator. At the center is Mugambe Laichena, advocate of the High Court. Thank you, Wakili. Good morning. And Dr. That is Mike Oleo, is public policy analyst. He's on my immediate right. Away. Last Monday you were away. Good morning.
Oh, is it so?
He didn't come. No,
Last
we
Monday
were
you
just the two of us.
You
He came late.
I did come.
Yes, you did.
So I had a problem.
Are you losing your mind?
Welcome back.
Very rare.
Polly, I hope you're well.
Very rare from people from the left side.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not eating enough fish.
Now I
Polly,
remember.
Sana.
Yes.
Polly.
You had laryngitis.
Yes,
Okay.
Happy to
I was
have
resting.
you. Thanks.
Now we have a lot to discuss, gentlemen. But first, in a mini cabinet reshuffle, Mwangi Kunjuri, a self-confessed DP William Ruto supporter, was sacked by President Uhuru Kenyatta. He was shown the door, and others moved to less influential posts. The president appeared to be keen to remove from office ministers who have openly come out to politics, especially in favor of his principal assistant. With time running out on Kenyatta, how can the president balance between the BBI, legacy, and wrangles in the ruling party? Benji, coming to you first. We have a lot to talk about, and this is the splash on the front page of the Sunday edition of the Daily Nation. How Uhuru's call pushed the rebels to the BBI rally. This was Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula, who finally made their way into the Buhungu Stadium in Kakamega County. When you look at that development from the essence of the cliche, more or less, the elusive Western Kenya unit, the Mulembo Nation, could there be an ambitious drive to galvanize that region or literally political? Do you see it as perhaps the options available for all the political leaders, especially those who harbor the 2022 ambition that they can get a chunk of the votes in the populous, vote-rich Western region? Well,
certainly a problem was, thanks Ayub, was developing last weekend where a few unfortunate things were happening. For example, people were being whipped to go to Bukungu, like almost by force. Secondly, those who did not want to go to the Bukungu BBI rally and were proposing something else in Mumias were also being fought like terrorists. And so one of the things that comes out clearly is that the president does not want noise, but he must be careful not to undermine democracy. So the reason these leaders got a phone call is because the president is very keen on this show of unity and of not kind of having any opposition. That's why he called personally and said, you guys, please go. What is not clear is what is exactly the long-term game, you know. What is the intention in the long term? Because you can just imagine, and this again is very unfortunate. So police forces were being used to to scuttle any opposition or any other meeting on that particular day, and in essence to block any other meeting. So this is absurd, because can you imagine if police were used to block Raila's meeting? You know, he'd be complaining bitterly that they are being persecuted, that the police are being misused, that Matiang'i is political. So I think some of these developments, Ayub, also are showing the country that we hardly have any national political leader that is ideologically driven, that is moral, that is sane. You just have a bunch of guys, you know, that in essence are kleptocrats. I saw your report on what the governors put into this thing. Governors are picking 10 million shillings, 100 million shillings and putting into these things. The lawyers know this, the auditors know this. It's just absurd what is happening, because these people are looting county and national coffers dry, and all in the name of BBI. I'm not really sure what the long-term outcome of BBI is, but just as I wrap up, Western is well known for democracy in the sense that Western will even have a lawyer candidate but running for president. But that does not guarantee Western votes per se to that candidate, because they look at different factors and then they vote in a very liberal, you know, very objective manner, where you'll have a lawyer candidate from Western, but a Luo candidate, for example, like Raila, will get the votes from Western. That's happened in the past. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing for democracy. What is bad is the persecution and the oppressive nature by which BBI is being shoved down the throats of Kenyans. That is what we saw from the weekend, and that is what is unfortunate.
All right, Wakili, just picking up from where Benji has left it, looking at the Western factor, which of course we'll proceed to address as we continue, but then is there a better way that probably the police forces or maybe the government could have dealt with these particular issues, especially when they stopped the other rally that was supposed to be conducted, looking at the events that have taken center stage before, in regards to counter rallies? Do you think there is a better way that they could have dealt with this, in as much as maybe it does not seem to be democratically right?
Sure, Linda, thank you. Yeah, there is a better way the government can handle such situations instead of making our nation look like a police nation.
Allow them to proceed with the meeting to counter this?
Actually, there are better ways, because they knew all along that this meeting was arranged, right? What should have been done is, of course, there are those who had organized the meeting, and before the police knew that the meeting was going to take place, but they didn't make any efforts to issue even notice to cancel that meeting or to warn them not to carry out the meeting. But on the eve's day when the meeting was to happen, that is when they sent the police. Of course, you saw it was quite brutal. But I can tell you for sure, Linda, this happened because because Mudavadi and Wetangula didn't attend that meeting. And definitely, you could see everyone expected them to attend this other meeting while the Bukungu meeting was going on. But these guys were shocked. And you saw our friend met himself in the situation that he was the other day. You see, if I'm convinced, if Mudavadi attended that meeting and Weta,
the same would not have happened?
I don't think
you think
the
so?
police would have done that.
You think so? Policy
because they were trying to communicate something. But actually, that's the wrong way of doing it. They should have communicated earlier enough, even a day before, that do not go on with that meeting because we are not going to allow it. But not just depend on them with the situation.
But a day before there was communication. There were communications prior to that, and of course they were told that they should not proceed with this particular meeting because it won't be allowed by police. But of course, in what they purported to be, of course, the democratic right, they proceeded to want to hold the meeting.
And actually, it's very true.
Thank you, Linda. First, I always give it to Western Province. it's the most democratic
Do you think so?
province.
Democracy or
There are people who are
They're very
arguing that now
democratic.
that the Luyas sort of lack political shape as it stands today. Because, I mean, today you will see Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula attending this meeting on BBI. Tomorrow, when, of course, another one is held by Deputy President William Ruto, they will cross over to the other side. So there's that feel that maybe they lack political shape,
No,
as
no, no.
opposed to say that it's
It
the
just shows
democratic.
how open-minded they are.
Oh, really?
And I think that's a very good attribute for good citizens. Western Province is the only place where you will go and you will get a hearing. And they will listen to you without waiting for instructions from any Baba or from any Kamwana. They will listen to you and give you all your time and you'll say whatever you want to say. So me, I think it's a good thing. Two, I strictly think that those who deployed policemen in Mumias to stop citizens from assembling, I think they were wrong. The Constitution of the Republic of Kenya allows for freedom of assembly and of association. So long as you do it in a lawful manner, you should be allowed to sit and say whatever you want to say and disperse when you deem fit. So that did not really impress me. But I also have a few questions. Actually, it's only one question. Why is it that Uhuru Kenyatta is not attending these BBI rallies? Who could be having the answer to that question?
If you'd see the newspaper today, Raila is Uhuru's new Mr. Fix-It. So when he's there, it's like Uhuru is in attendance, and he conveys the message
from the brother.
Yes.
Ndugu yake.
And what's so hard for the Ndugu yake also to attend and speak for himself?
Because he's also the initiator.
Yes.
Why do you think he isn't?
Anyway, I want to say something else. BBI,
Yes.
my interpretation of it was, and still is, that it was a ceasefire initiative. A ceasefire between the two warring factions at the time when we came from elections. There was a lot of tension, and they had to enter into a ceasefire. And like every other ceasefire initiative, it had to take care of the interests of the two protagonists first. If you find your interest inside that arrangement, well and good. But theirs was the first to be taken care of. So even up to and including where we are now, this thing is supposed to take care of their interests. And I think that's why even some phone calls are being made to cajole people to attend meetings. Two, ceasefires are not meant to be an end in itself. A ceasefire is supposed to be a means to an end. So what is the end? That is what people are still asking. What is the end in this game? Where are we heading with it? And this is what should be clarified. Wherever they were in Kisii, they didn't tell us the end game in this. They were in Kakamega last weekend. They didn't tell us what the end game is. And now they are heading to Mombasa. We hope and pray that when they are in Mombasa, they'll be able to tell us what is the end game in all this arrangement. Because there must be. When they came out on March 9th, during the handshake, when they came out on the steps of Arambe House, they shook hands, and they told us what they wanted us to hear. I'm very sure they did not tell us everything they had discussed behind. Politicians don't behave that way. They sit and discuss whatever they discussed, then they say, now when we go out there, this is what we will tell them. So they told us what they wanted us to hear, but they did not tell us the whole story. Or did they tell you?
Well, let's listen to what they had to say first, and then we'll be sure of what exactly it is that actually they told us. Then from there, we're able to interpret in our own special way. While people argue that it's about the BBI, others say that, you know what, these are just 2022 political alignments or realignments. Let's take a look.
Nimekuja hapa kwa sababu nataka niue fitina.
We are not strangers in Kenya. We have the right to be here. The most important thing is the unity of the people of Kenya. And it must be a unity of purpose.
All right, that's more like it. That was just a little bit brief, but of course we'll have more and more to listen into what they told us and get to know whether indeed they told us something that will be worth for the common Mwananchi. As they would argue, what we know so far is that they say it's about, sort of the interest of the most, common mwananchi that you'd ever imagine, you know, the fact that we need to fix our electoral injustices and all that. But sadly enough, from the talks that we see, the rhetorics that we see, it's a clear indication that probably these talks or these meetings are not supposed to, or they're not bound to sort of address the issues of the common mwananchi. Benji, you brought aboard pertinent points, and I think, let me just ask this question, Ayub, before we come to you, in regards to the taxpayers' money. In the event that, of course, looking at the document that we have as it stands right now, in the event that we do not have changes, or better yet, if we have changes, do you suppose then it will come in handy to address the people's issues, as opposed to the talk that is on ground right now, that all this is about, you know, realigning issues to do with 2022 politics, and actually future politics for that matter, because then a majority of these leaders are looking at what is left of them when it comes to, of course, 2022 and years to come in regards to politics.
And especially the two-term governance. What I've said, and I was just about to tweet, but we had to come onto this show. It's really unfortunate, Ayub, if you think about it, that this is the beginning of 2020.
Yes.
And in essence, we are going straight into campaign mode for 2020, and then for 2021, before general election 2022. This is shameful. I must caution Kenyans, and I know there are many who watch this show. I don't know how many, but when are we ever going to build this country? We have wrong-headed proposals about adding positions in government. I had one of the members of parliament, I think his name is George something, talking about adding a prime minister position, adding deputy prime ministers, etc. You know, this is crystallizing, Linda, the fact that we have built our politics on tribal basis. And so tribal tokenism at the top leads to people at the bottom saying, I'm a Meru, Mugambi is there, therefore I'm represented. How does this affect the price of coffee? How does this affect the market for maize? When then you've got the people that are there perennially accused and suspected and proved to be corrupt and in corruption. Look at the behavior and the conduct of Babu, you know, over the weekend. How is this BBI going to give us better leaders? I can see you have a copy of the Constitution there, and what we need to do is implement this Constitution. We talk about that all the time. Contract. The social contract with the people. And so it's really ridiculous that as the challenges mount, as the national debt mounts, as the national budget expands, you've got more and more activity, more and more threats and name-calling, and actually and specifically more and more divisions in Kenya in the name of building bridges. Which bridges are you building if Kenyans are asking for accountability on public money? How much is BBI costing? Where is the law, the legal framework that allows you to draw down national money accrued from national debt to fund BBI? How moral is it to have proposals that two-term governors have to find a way to come back because the Constitution, you know, outlines clearly that after you serve 2 terms, you go and do other things. And so BBI, I'm sorry to say this on air, I've seen a lot of this discussed on social media, is a scam of sorts. And no wonder that, because the president is very well advised and protected, that he is always careful and keeps an arm's length. Maybe that will change a bit after these things come out in the media, but so far, keeps an arm's length and is basically playing more of an observatory role to see how it goes and if it backfires or not. And of course, as the headline says, you know, Raila is the Mr. Fix-It, yeah, he's mtu wa mkono, yeah. You wonder when someone will ever be the Fix-It for him. But not to overbash it, but, you know, this is not what we need. And again, we just came from an election, a general election 2 years ago. So what we need in this country is political hygiene, political party discipline, ideology, focus. Because Wakili, I think you agree, we will never grow any of the industries and create jobs if all you do is politic year in, year out. From general election, you start campaigning for the next election, you start looting resources for campaigns, for, you know, for distributing and giving goodies. then you change the constitution, then you go 6 years, then Raila says it's been stolen again, then you change constitution again, and on and on and on. It is extremely disappointing,
All right.
and the leaders ought to be ashamed of themselves, even though we know that's highly unlikely.
All right. Wakili Lachena, if I may come to you. We have been here before, and the most worrying aspect is that we seem to be running away from the real happenings, which have done relatively little to address the problems, the deep-seated Kenya's problem. For instance, the Committee of Eminent Persons issued a report in 2006. A year later, we had the post-election skirmishes which engulfed the country. And after that, we had the Kenya National Dialogue and Reconciliation Agreement, KNDR, between Kibaki and Raila Odinga. It listed a whole host of items, including overcoming the immediate crisis, ending the violence, dealing with humanitarian crisis. For instance, agenda number 4, addressing long-term issues, undertaking constitutional, legal, institutional reforms, land reform, tackling poverty, inequality, as well as combating regional development imbalances, tackling unemployment, particularly among the young people, consolidating national cohesion and unity, addressing transparency, accountability, and impunity. This is a pretty comprehensive document alongside others. It also formed the Kenya, that is the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Report from 1963 to 2008. We seem not wanting to deal with the history of the past and rather rewrite it. How do we face it?
Thank you, Ayub. And actually, I want to, in addition to all that, you remember the latest one was TJRC. That report is the one, also Linda mentioned about political injustice,
injustices.
injustices.
Yes. Electoral injustice.
And you connect the electoral injustices and all that was addressed by TJRC. You know what happened to TJRC.
Still gathering dust.
After that report was taken to Parliament, nothing has ever happened even to date. So all those reports you've read, including TJRC, which is one of the most recent, addressed better issues even than BBI itself. So why are we even bringing BBI before you even done in implementing these reports? Because if you hear what Raila is saying, is that Mimi and Uhuru, we may not be there, but we want the best leader for the country. Who says that BBI is going to give us the best leader? All right? Those are some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves. Because actually, if you look at now, we want to set a very bad history whereby we will be changing our constitution after every 10 years to suit another political wave. Because we changed our constitution in 2010, right? And then we had the new leaders coming with a very big wave. We've had all these issues, TDRC, many other reports. They have captured and covered how we are going to do away with unemployment, with the injustices that have been happening in the country. Nothing has been done so far. Then we want again to change the constitution after 10 years to bring another new wave. That is exactly what we want what we are telling the Kenyans. Because these leaders want to rewrite the history themselves. But actually, you see the way they are doing it, it's wrong. Yes, it's okay. It's right to change the constitution. The BBI, well, is well-intended and well-intentioned. But have we even finalized implementing the 2010 constitution?
Which is a no.
Which is a no. And now we are changing it again. So what is the guarantee then that Kenyans will ever settle and we start working on
But there are notable loopholes within the 2010 constitution that we all acknowledge, especially at that time during the electioneering period. You saw numerous cases, of course, being presented to court in regards to the fact that there was no proper, understanding of what has been enshrined on the constitution. Do you suppose then it will be wrong to proceed and make changes because then these issues are bound to recur, and if not addressed at the level of the constitution, then it becomes hard to get to address them?
Well, I think, Linda, it is necessary that we change the constitution. But also, we need to be very careful on what we are changing. Because I can tell you for sure, I've read that BBI document and I think in most of it, and understood exactly what they want to do. Some of those provisions are very beautiful, they are very nice. But you see, look at the issue of bringing the deputy prime minister, and the prime minister and deputies. Isn't this also an addition
baggage.
of abandonment to the
Already
Kenyans,
20.
to the taxpayers. Because is it necessary, first of all? Are you trying to tell me that we've had a very powerful deputy president,
Yes.
unlike before, right? Are you now trying to tell me that if we have a prime minister, we are going to do better than when we have a president and a powerful deputy president? Because in real sense, I know maybe perhaps the purpose of the committee which was gazetted on Monday will be relooking at the BBI document and maybe doing some changes like do we need to have a powerful prime minister who has not been elected by the people? I know those are some of the things that they are going to do.
Okay.
And we hope that they will be looking at that. So we are asking these leaders to tell us what is this BBI going to do different than what has been happening previously. Yes, it is good, it is important, but what is it going to do for us? How are we going to implement it to ensure that Kenyans economically they will grow and that all those provisions that they are proposing are going to be carried out so that we don't waste public resources. Just like you heard Benji say,
Right.
they are really using a lot of money. And I even heard Mdavadi complain that there was, I think 22 million was set for the Bukungu.
More than that.
I think
Reportedly more than that. Yeah, more than that.
How much money is
How
that?
much? 50 million?
20
No,
million.
more than that.
I said it's more than actually 20
Reportedly, because that is subject to, of course, a confirmation by the officers that are mandated by law.
Yes.
Kakamega County 100 million, Bungoma 30, Bungoma 15,
So is Raila a
Busia
reformer?
30, and Vihiga 15.
I think you're the one who supports
Mike,
your
Mike,
mind.
let me come to you, Mike, now.
Let's listen to
There is the issue about the ODM factor here. We'll come to the extent with which there are some who are planning the expansion of the executive. And of course, Raila proposed that in the 2018 Kakamega Devolution Summit. He said there's need for three-tier system of government. But coming to you, we have the cartoon edition for that. Coming to you, the ODM says it wants a total parliamentary system of governance. In the second phase of collecting the views, we are coming back. We are getting back to this.
Actually, I was about to show this cartoon.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are coming back because that's going to be having a lot of burden on the taxpayers. It says it wants a parliamentary system of governance. And in the second phase of the collection of the views, it says there's need for amendment of the first instance report, which was incorporated in the use of Haji-led task force. Are we seeing a sense of a political, sort of need to be satisfied here? And how does the president shield or wrap in immune this report, which he says will cure our political problems? And why are we letting the political class dictate, address our problems as Kenyans?
Thank you, Ayub. Let me start from where I stopped at the beginning. This initiative is supposed to take care of the interests of those two protagonists. All these processes will lead to just that.
That is President Uhuru Kenyatta and
the ODM leader.
Let me ask this question in
Yes.
regards to that before you proceed to the next one. President Uhuru Kenyatta has first-hand sort of experience on matters of how political irresponsibility can sort of, taint and a country's image and all that. Of course, based on his experience at the level of The Hague. Do you suppose then that with this interest of getting a legacy and, sort of protecting his name, he would proceed again to really want to stick to power with everyone eyeing him, including the international community?
If it is done legally, he would not have a problem with that.
Okay, so that is, they're trying to get...
Yes, but I want to say
Legal
something
sanity.
about the Gazette notice, which Wakili talked about here. If you read that Gazette notice, it was just a one-pager.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting Gazette notice if you read it. One, it was backdated deliberately to take care of those who were complaining that already the processes were going on and the team had not been gazetted and money was being used. So it was backdated to take care of those fellows.
Let's just stop right there. 1 second. Let's just stop right there. What are you talking about? You're issuing a Gazette notice on the 20th. Is it legal to backdate the same? What are we even talking about? Where is this country headed?
That was the curious part.
Right.
The other curious part in that Gazette notice was that there was no BBI advisory task force. This time around, he talked about BBI steering committee. That was supposed to take care of Okia Omtata, who had gone to court to challenge the validity of the BBI advisory task force. So now we have a steering committee. If you serve them with any court documents, they'll say they are a stranger to your matter.
Correct.
True.
So they took care of Omtata at that point. The third curious thing about that Gazette notice was that it did not mention the earlier report which Haji had presented to the president. In fact, it said that the committee is supposed to go out and collect views, meaning that they are starting from a plain sheet of paper. So they can give you the executive prime minister, and they say that is what Linda said.
Okay.
They can give you a parliamentary system, and they'll say that is what Ayub said.
Okay. In that regard then, Mike, does it mean that there is a line or a divide of the handshake that was not contented with the earlier report which was presented to the president?
My take has always been this, which is a bit controversial. I believe there were three reports. There was one which was extreme left, one which was extreme right, and there was a centrist one. The one which was given to Kenyans was the centrist one, the one which was agreeable to everybody. Now, after the second process, we are going to get now the real one. That is going to now take care of the interests of those guys who are behind the BBI. That's my take.
All right, let's loop in Benji. Are you seeing a case of a chess game here politically that might, in this particular regard, with no assurances and guarantees, make the BBI look like an elite coming together of the president and the opposition chief, and that beyond 2022, there can be a possible continuity, perpetual continuity of political violence, and that this might not cure the real political problems or remedy our problems in the country?
What is even a bigger problem right now, Ayub, is the continued debauchery, the continued predatory nature of our politics and our politicians lacking discipline. And just going back to the issue of the Embakasi East MP, just the behavior and the lack of contrition from what happened in this shooting, when you look at the pronouncements of his lawyer, when you look at the pronouncements of the MP himself, the fact that they would say something like the victim tripped and fell on the gun or whatever just shows you the level of evil that is defining the political landscape. When you're talking on national television about openly backdating and publishing a Gazette notice or an official document. I've seen a discussion again in the papers this morning on this row between Honorable Kanini Kega and His Excellency the Deputy President, where the exposure is that these guys who are bringing money from the president, saying it's from the president, are picking it from his office. So that this is being engineered by people in the president's office who are doing whatever they're doing. I'm pretty sure, yeah, exactly. Pretty sure it's PS Kibicho. And so they pick the money and then they say, the president gave me, you see? And all of these gimmicks, my point is that all of these gimmicks and all of these contemptuous, games, first of all, assume that Kenyans are too foolish. They basically are a continuation of the colonial culture that was there, which was despotic in nature. And if you look at this cartoon.
Yes, we can have that up on air.
That cartoon really gives the right picture.
Yes.
And what is the picture? If you look at it properly.
Wanjiko at the center.
Wanjiko is actually really nowhere. First,
and divided into segments.
It is the cow has been properly captured and tethered. So the person holding it there by the rope is President Uhuru.
Yes, in the red tie.
Yeah, alafu Raila ananyoa kisu.
Yes, it's sharpening.
He's always in a controversial stance, and I really, some of these cartoonists, some of these editorial cartoonists really give you hope in humanity, because this is the height of intellectual acumen. So there is Raila with that hat over his face there, knowing the panga, like the world is coming to an end, ready to dismember this prize bull.
Fat cow.
Prize bull.
Yes, this is a bull.
Yeah, for choice cuts for the president, the so-called premier, prime minister, governor, MP, and if you look at this, cartoon carefully, you can see the rump stake, the buttock there is for the senator, then the woman rep, the MP, and the MCA down there as you go down towards the leg. The stake is already gone. And if you look at this picture very carefully, so BBI is the panga that is doing all this work, Linda. And then down there at the hoof and the part of the tail, the end part of the tail actually, it's not even the oxtail, it's the end part, the hairy part.
The hairy part that cannot...
is what they will boil and give Wanjiko to eat, and this is the definition of how stupid our politics is. It's why it turns off intelligent and decent people, because it is just about tricks and about manipulation and deception and foolishness, so that now they will continue to eat all of the prize cuts. And I'm telling you, they'll even call this station and complain that we are analyzing these things as accurately.
In the right way.
Because I've been around here for a while.
It's there, actually.
You see, that's why it's there. They'll complain to nation. That's why they removed Gado, by the way. You can see Gado used to be here. This is now Iga. That's why they removed Gado. There are issues. And they'll complain very bitterly. Benji Ndolo is there. He's besmirching the name of politicians, of the House of Parliament and what have you. But this is the reality. And finally, this will never result in anything being solved that was the problem at independence. Poverty, disease, ignorance will not be solved by this old panga here. Ambaye inanolewa, this will never solve anything. It is just a formula for the rich to get richer, for the poor to be misused, for the slums to grow, for the elite to sit in their executive positions and keep sharing power, which is why you've had this talk about dynasties.
Yes.
It is really, really unbelievable.
Yes, Wakili.
Yes, Wakili speaks also on the reason as to why you think a majority of the leaders are now coming into support. Whether directly or indirectly, they're coming in. You know, the attendance of Moses Wetangula, Musalia Mudavadi, sincerely, in as much as they say they have come to dispel Vitina, sincerely speaking, is a clear indication that they've realized that, yes, this is where now our future lies, and this is how we need to push this to ensure that we are somewhere.
In fact, if I may put it clearly,
Yes.
What do you expect, like this committee that was gazetted to come up with? I can tell you the truth. They will be coming up with a document where we are going to have a powerful prime minister elected by the people. Let's go back to Bukungu.
So you prophesied a
You
parliamentary
can be
system
sure
of
that is
governance.
one. That's
Meaning it satisfies the
it is
ODM
already
agenda.
done. That thing is already done
All right.
by Ayub.
All
It's
right.
coming.
It's coming. You can be sure of that. And let's go back to Bukungu Stadium. You see Musalia Mudavadi and
Moses
Weta
Wetangula.
saying that we have come here because we want unity. Of course, we know why they went there. Initially, they were not being involved in the arrangements of all this, and they have clearly shown us that they were taking advantage of their supporters to be included in the organization of whatever cake it is that is being shared or that is
Being
that's
baked.
being baked. All right. Now they are already there from a call from the president direct. Now. One question you may ask yourself is this. They are saying this is the time that Muluya atakuwa kwa serikali. Sawa sawa. I don't know whether they are trying to tell us people like Nani are not in the government. Is a cabinet.
Two cabinet ministers, we have Eugene Malwa, former CS. We have Ben Washali, the majority whip.
But it is now that they were telling the people, the lawyers, that it is time now that we lawyers will be in government. Well, you need to ask yourself one question. If it is time lawyers will be in government, it is time also lawyers will be in government. Mkikuyu pia anataka kuwa kwa government. Mumeru pia anataka kuwa kwa government.
Okay.
Are we going to create powerful positions at the top to be held by all the 42, 43, we are about 43
Communities.
Yes.
About 43?
43, yes.
So are we going to have a president, a prime minister, deputies, totaling to 43 really?
Well,
Interesting times
that's at
ahead.
the expense of a deprived taxpayer. Yes, Linda, take us for a short break.
All right, yes, I think, remember, it's very important that you interact with us. Of course, we'll be sampling some of your comments as we proceed with this broadcast. # NewDayKE, SMS short code is 409 720. Of course, the number to call running down on your screen. We'd love to hear what you have to say in regards to this particular issue, because it's all about the common mwananchi and where it's going to head us as a people. We're taking that short breather and we'll be coming back with more on the same, so keep it right here. And on the last bit of discussing the BBI and crossing over to a different discussion, let's first of all listen into what the leaders have to say. Of course, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and equally what the deputy has in store in regards to the same. Then we come to wind up on the same.
Jambo la pili, tunataka referendum, na hiyo referendum tunataka ifanyike kabla ya Julai. Na wale ambao walisoma gazette notice ya President Uhuru Kenyatta, alisema hiyo ripoti lazima tuipate kabla ya 30th June 2020.
We're talking about divisive elections, so you must look at BBI in totality, not singly.
Na wale ambao munasikia wakipiga nduru, wale wachache mutawaona tena wakinyenyekea kwa Uhuru. We mzee tutame.
Mumezungumzia tsunami miaka nyingi, lakini leo wacha niwaeleze. Tsunami ya Uhuru na baba inabeba mpaka milima. Na kama hauko kwa BBI na handshake, ole wa...
I saw yesterday in Kakamega the insults formed half of the meeting. There was less mention of BBI than mention of Ruto and his home in Sugoi. I want to tell those friends of mine, there is no need to hurry. I will need people to campaign for me later. Let us finish with BBI. Kwa sababu wengi walienda huko sijui wananifanyia campaign, kwa sababu nilikuwa nasikia wanasema Ruto, Sugoi, sijui. Wangoje kwanza, kama wanataka kunifanyia campaign, wangoje. Tufanye kwanza hii BBI.
Yes, there you go. And just looking at those bites got me thinking of what exactly is the role of these oldies that now come on board. Of course, yes, seasoned politicians would want to see the equal minor commander. Atwoli
is not even a politician.
He's not a politician, but then he's always informing the issues. And he is part
and he has vied, I think, twice.
He does not have interest at all in
because he will not.
And he has vied twice.
Strategically, he is within the politics of the country.
Talking about oppression, repression.
Lifetime
if you are not in BBI, wafungiwe na polisi kwa nyumba zao until the rally ends.
Confidently, and you know, yes.
Thank you, Linda.
Come on.
Now, let me give you my take on why Atwoli and Commander are playing a big role in this. They are old men. And they may not, Atwoli may not look like a politician, but his position is very political. Now, from a very clear professional perspective, the best way to influence a political process is to engage it fully from the word go. So they are being very pragmatic in this manner. If you want to influence a political process, you engage it. You don't stay away. Not unless you've weighed your chances and you've seen that by staying away you can render it irrelevant. But if you cannot render it irrelevant, it's strategic to always engage it. So Atwoli and Commander want to influence the outcome of that process. But I want to say something else. That Gazette notice says that the committee have until June or any date which is earlier. That is a very interesting statement. That means the president can say that sasa watu wameongea kabisa, we've heard from you guys, now can you give us the final report? And then they unleash.
Even next month.
Even next month. So
it's open-ended?
It is.
It's open-ended.
Okay.
Just have a look at that Gazette notice again and you'll see it's a very curious piece of document. It's important for Kenyans to be very alert now and see how these things are turning out and see how they can influence the outcome. Because it's a clean slate. It can come up with anything. And that anything is like somebody pulling a rabbit from a bag and saying, this is what we've come up with. So,
and this reality is what has caused the trust deficit. That's what I'm talking about here.
Of course.
Where everything that the government does is suspicious. Where everything that is put forward, it's not clear if it's for Wanjiku, for the benefit of, You see, there's always a rabbit out there. There's always cards hidden. That's what we need to change.
Don't be surprised, there's already a report.
Exactly.
And
be
the final
surprised.
one.
And my worry is that we are a democracy, we are a constitutional democracy for that matter. What informed the cancellation of the Mumias meeting, yet the Bukhungu one was allowed to go ahead, separated by more than 30 kilometers, yet we had a rally at the Nyayo National Stadium and at Uhuru Park in Nairobi in the 2017 elections.
The bulldozing of state largesse.
Yes, that's the point.
That the state is going to use the deep state to further any agenda, and that agenda is fine, all right? It doesn't amount to repression or despotism as long as it's not against Raila. If the state was doing anything like this, and Honorable Raila from ODM was not part of it, he would be calling a daily press conference with Sifuna and the rest of his team, decrying that democracy is being undermined, that institutions are being misused, that Eurobond is being used to fund this, and he'd be very articulate on it. But to the extent that now he is allowed at the table, all of a sudden it's not oppression anymore. It is bomb the guys in Mumias, lock anybody up, cover for any MP that is on your party, even if they've shot someone, do not speak on anything. This is why the word political conman has been coined. And it's really, really, really unfortunate because this country will never change if leaders are tricksters and also if leaders are followers rather than leaders. And as well, if everything that is done is suspicious, is contorted, is a conspiracy of sorts against the common man.
The Mumias thing, in my opinion, I said earlier in the show, it was wrong to bar people from meeting to say whatever they wanted to say. It is their right. And they had all the entitlement to sit and say, because they've said they support the BBI, let them tell us they support it in their own language. That should be in order. Now, secondly, the gazetted committee has not started sitting. So we cannot claim that what was going on in Buhungu was an official function of the committee that was collecting views, and therefore those who were meeting in Mumias had nobody else to collect their views. The gazetted committee has not started sitting. When they start sitting, then we shall know where they are sitting, at what time, and for how long. Then whoever has views shall engage, shall take them there. But for as long as people just want to sit under a tree or in a stadium and speak whatever they want to speak, I think they should be allowed.
In addition to what,
as per the Constitution,
to what Mike has said, in addition to what Mike is saying, and we said it last time, first of all, can we have a final document before we start going public? We know, because even right now, we are not aware which the referendum that we are going to vote. We don't have the final document. And we are already campaigning all over the country, vote for the referendum. Yet we don't have the final document. This committee needs to sit, we take our views, then we have the final document, then you can go campaigning for the people to vote. And I repeat this once again. The Constitution under Article 255, 256, 257 is very clear on how we can change the Constitution. And if you look at it, I'm so surprised to hear Orengo saying that if you read yesterday, Orengo said that we should have the referendum by July. Actually, he said the report is to come in June. And then we have a referendum by July. This is a very respectable advocate of the High Court of Kenya. With so many years in practice, and I expect he has the Constitution on his fingertips. Is it really possible to have a report in June and have a referendum
Is it realistic?
in July? It's not even realistic, leave about even being constitutional, because there is a process.
Yes.
Because I know what Raila and his team, and including the president, how they want the referendum to be carried out is under Article 257.
It also faces the dangers of a timeline, based on also on the Constitution. So then probably that's the reason why they would want to push it very fast.
I would not expect Orengo to say that, because he knows very well, once this document, the final document has come, and Article 257 definitely will require this document to be sent to the county assemblies.
Okay.
All right?
So he wants the popular initiative.
Yes.
What they are wanting is the parliamentary initiative.
They are running away from
Parliamentary.
Article 256.
Parliamentary.
Parliamentary. That is what Ruto wants.
Okay.
You know, Ruto wants we do the constitution. I mean, we do a change of the constitution
Through parliament.
through
Parliament,
Article
yes.
256.
Okay.
That is through parliament.
Yep.
And the fear of the president and Raila is that if this document goes to parliament,
Then
it
there's no
fails.
way.
Because it requires two-thirds majority. You know what is two-thirds majority in
Yes,
parliament?
very hard
So
to raise
that
such
is
numbers.
Article 256. So they are fearing that it fails. Now they want to go under Article 257, which also has a process. And this process is a bit long.
So
Not
a
later
plain,
than
so a
November,
plain
predictable.
reading.
Not later than November. We
So a
cannot
plain
argue
reading
with
of
that.
257, first of all, you know, my first issue. An amendment to this constitution may be proposed by a popular initiative signed by at least 1 million registered voters. Now, Honorable Raila and his team tried to do
Yes,
Okoa Kenya.
Kenya.
And clearly, the audit and verification of signatures proved that they did not get 1 million
1 million
signatures.
threshold, yeah.
So it is also wrong-headed, and this is, you see, this is my recurrent theme, and I'm very consistent. Year after year, show after show. It also is very bad for the political culture in this country, for the ordinary Kenyan, the Form 4 person watching this show, the first-year university student watching this show, to understand that now that Raila is allied to President Uhuru, he can now raise 1 million signatures. And the problem with these guys is that they don't play and don't see the long-term game. They don't look at the philosophical aspect of politics. They look at quick wins. Now, just some quick observations I'm trying to make. Wakili talked about Honorable Orengo. It is really curious, I was saying off camera, that Orengo was part of the team of young Turks.
Yes, Matiba.
Yes.
And such larger-than-life figures as Matiba, who gave Moi a very hard time. He's a seasoned lawyer. He's a seasoned politician. They gave Moi a very difficult time. And I remember him pronouncing in 2013 that President Uhuru is a paper tiger. They took down KANU, and Uhuru will just be bacon on the plate for them. In the fullness of time, we realize Uhuru amewaweza kabisa 101% over. You just wonder, what kind of strategies and thinkers are these? Because there's so much guesswork, so much happenstance, and with it, so much, therefore, misgovernance. So that the opposition now and the so-called reformers are also part of the misgovernance, the largesse, the unaccountability, the corruption that is really, really ailing the country. And so, even in this context, Ayub, you had him then declaring IEBC a criminal
Enterprise.
But which he himself was elected on an IEBC process. He has not resigned and said, you know what, I differ with IEBC. As such, I'm resigning my seat.
And seek fresh
I
mandate.
will not
seek
fresh mandate even under IEBC. So he continues to serve under something that IEBC did, calls them names, participates in all of this debauchery, you know, before has disparaged the president and what have you. Now, how has he changed tone? It's just all unbelievable.
Okay, classic refereeing dilemma here, because there's also issue about the IEBC, which is a whole host of an expansive topic to talk about in the proposal by the Building Bridges Initiative Task Force report. But gentlemen, let's now turn our attention to another equally pertinent point, which regards two members of parliament. First is Baba Wino, the Embakasi East member of parliament, who has spent the last 3 nights, 72 hours in police cell over the alleged shooting of a DJ at a club here in Nairobi County, and the Member of Parliament, Gatundu South constituency, Moses Kuria, whose security detail was withdrawn over statements he made over the weekend in regard to a press is set to issue today at Parliament with regards to Chris Musando, the former IEBC tech guru who was gruesomely murdered a month or days before the 2017 general elections, which set the country to an uncertain political times because of the positions he at the time occupied at the IEBC. Coming to you, Wakili. Michael Leo, to start with you, in regards to the general essence of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, integrity, and how well they need to carry themselves, because they do occupy the positions of leadership. And it's up to the young people who look up to them for them to be epitomized, to offer lessons from the top. Do you see an unfortunate scenario in the league or the crop of members of parliament and the leadership that we have in the country with regards to the questionable essence of behavior that they have shown in public?
Thank you, Ayub. First of all, we as a country trashed Chapter 6 a long time ago. We don't follow it. We just pay lip service to it and we think that's okay. So it would be like expecting too much from our MPs to be role models in a society that has no regard for Chapter 6 of the Constitution and even the Leadership and Integrity Act. They don't adhere to that. But I want to say something about Babu Owino's matter. You know, Babu shot somebody inside a club. A club is not a place people should be allowed to get in with guns, because a club is a dangerous place. People go there and drink. And once people drink, they get intoxicated. And when they get intoxicated, their sense of judgment
is impaired,
is altered. So people should not be allowed to carry arms into clubs. And I was very, very surprised that even at the door of that club, the B club, there is even a sign of a gun done like this. And nobody enforced that. It's very dangerous. Even if you were to go out somewhere and you just think of the scenario that somebody could be having a gun where you are going out, you wouldn't go there. So that is something that needs to be done. Secondly, that same club had issues in court. Okay? And it was supposed to have closed, and it's still working. That shows you the extent to which our society operates on impunity. That needs to be dealt with. Now, Babu will most likely appear in court today. They'll prefer the charges that they have prepared, and we'll see how far it goes. I want to talk about my friend Moses Kuria. I don't think it is good to withdraw his security detail. Even if you differ with Benji here.
Apparently had six.
Yeah, even if you differ with Benji on opinion, even if he criticizes you so much, please make sure that you respect his security, because should anything happen to him now, where will the country be? And that also shows that some people in government are very thin-skinned. They cannot take opposition, they cannot take criticism, and that's not good for good governance. Correct. Let Kuria keep his security and let him do what he wants to do. If you want to deal with him politically. He's a politician. But don't place his life in a situation where now even everybody just sees that he's a victim. So you are now turning a villain into a victim, and we will not know how to deal with it later.
Pronounce it to the world that he's vulnerable.
Apparently he had 6 armed bodyguards, so which is equally... I mean, when you look at the police,
usually those bodyguards are spread around. Usually
Correct,
they are not
they're not following him.
Yeah.
It's one in his rural home, another
in Nairobi,
another one with him. So usually the 6 are usually spread out. So I'm not surprised by that. It's not too much. They have that access. In fact, that is a very lean one, going by the standards of the way I see some other people are guarded, even in homes where they never visit. They are gunmen there, paid by the taxpayer. So we just need to...
I have a friend who has 10, and those are the ones that shadow him.
You see?
10?
Yes. Some even have more.
Mheshimiwa PK.
Yes. Some have more.
And there are reasons for that level of security, you know, with his fights with Sonko.
They were justified.
Some time back.
Okay.
Yeah, some time back, yeah. But he's retained them, and he sorts them out.
Okay, so, what's your view?
My view, and just like my brother here said, I think Kenyans, it's like we forgot about Chapter 6 completely, or we don't respect it in any way. And of course, it starts from the top. It starts from the top. That is the government and all that. But look at Kuria. Kuria has been a politician who we all know from the beginning what kind of a politician he has been.
Yep.
You know, sometimes he doesn't think before he talks. That I can use those ones because that is very true. Because he will talk about anything, anytime. And you can see right now, he is fighting the president. He's in his party, but he's fighting the president, who is He's a member of parliament.
Yes,
I mean,
who he represents.
Who he represents, even in parliament, all right? And you know, such situations, I know where the president may not be, he'll always be pissed off by such kind of things. But just like we've said again, regardless of his opinions, he is entitled to his security and all that. But also, I want to say that politicians must own up for everything they do, for all how they conduct themselves in public, because we elect them to go and represent us. And the way you're representing me, you must own up for anything that you do. He has told us he has information about Musando. He must tell us. Let me tell you the
Today
truth. Actually, he has to.
Well, that is the
He said he
concerning
wants
point,
to set the record straight, you know, because
3
people
p.m.
have
today.
been, yes, 3 p.m.
Yes,
today, that,
yes.
you know, he does not want to be sort of, again, connected to the, so he's going to set the record straight. He's clearly a person of interest in regards to this.
In fact, yes. And he has to tell us, because we all want to know. That issue went like that, we want to know. And I would say, if you see him being asked to go and record a statement, let's not start saying, oh, anaonewa, manini. No. Let him own up. Let him tell us what he knows. Actually, that is it. Then, when you look at the members of parliament, when you go there, we would expect them to depict a picture of a respectable person in public. Look at Baba Wino. Well, the incident that happened, I want, in as much as I want to treat him like any other revealer in the club, or like any other person are you passing by to have a drink, then we cannot fail to look at him as a member of parliament, of course representing a constituency in Nairobi. Baba Wino has bodyguards, all right? I do not understand why he would go to a club with a gun.
And
that is first of all.
Well, while the other bit of the clip that went viral on social media is subject to proven beyond reasonable doubt in a court of law. What he was doing, shisha, is illegal.
It's illegal.
Banned in the country.
Actually, I'm going there.
Okay.
First of all, entering the club with a gun
and the club is also illegal.
Itself is wrong.
Okay.
Two, this club is also operating illegally because there's a court order.
So it's an illegality on top of illegality.
It's an illegality
by a
on
lawmaker.
top of an illegality
by a lawmaker.
Yes, that's the point.
And President Uhuru is not even saying anything. That's a painful part.
He's smoking shisha in public. Shisha was banned. That is already another illegality, all right? And you see, I'm surprised. Anyway, it's not a surprise. Cliff is doing his job by saying that this guy was teasing him to know whether he has a gun, or, you know, sometimes when we are representing clients, we say...
I don't know how Mbeta was raised.
But I don't know. But somehow, how do you say that this guy teased him? He teased him that, would you be having a gun? And then you just remove the gun and prove it. Prove it.
Practically.
Practically.
Yet he knew that was
and he shot twice, right? He shot him twice, and then you're trying to tell us, you know, he's trying to tell us that they are paying the bills. You'll go to see him after that. It is a crime. Regardless of what happens,
very serious
regardless of how it was done, it is a criminal offense, and you must face the law.
Okay, but Benji, let me come to you in line with that, because Moses Kura equally, we are talking about 2 members of parliament, is equally facing another charge of incitement, the Pangani 6, more or less. That was when the political temperatures were high in the country. And then the question here is the judiciary now, which will handle these particular cases. And there are concerns that it's the missing link in the fight against corruption, and equally it has failed in terms of judicial service delivery in the country. And Kenyans are worried about them getting away with such actions. Some are still pending in court. We have now fresh cases that are before the courts of law. How will the judiciary in this case embolden itself and play the crucial part in terms of ensuring what's presented before them is proven beyond reasonable doubt and charge them, whether they are members of parliament or whether they're any other members of the society? Because look at Brazil. Lula da Silva, the former president, served 15-year jail term before the appeal, of course. South Korea, the former president, is in jail. And we have a bunch of other leaders across the world who have been jailed because of mismanagement and of what they have done in regard to the criminal acts they have committed. Are we likely to see successful convictions out of this?
The last decade was very bad for governance in this country. As Mike alluded to, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the struggle with the entire Hague situation, the watering down of Chapter 6, the ultimate flushing down the loo of Chapter 6. The last decade has been awful for governance because we got it right as far as looking for a constitution, and then we got it wrong as far as implementation. We got it wrong as far as developing the culture, so that where we are today, of course the judiciary is failing. The judiciary is not driven by any clear jurisprudence. It lacks leadership. In the face of crisis, CJ Maraga, who's obviously a very courageous and bold guy, even from what he did in 2017, now became confused and ran scared, and is not really sure how to prevail. And so judges are openly, and we talked about this even on Speaker's Gallery on this station, judges are openly, you know, taking bribes. Magistrates, certainly. Dispensing judgments to those that have money and power. There's a shyness with which, I mean, look at Obado. Obado is a governor, still a sitting governor, out on bail, accused and charged with murder. It couldn't get worse. I mean, this is completely unbelievable. I happen to know Babu Owino personally. I knew him from my days in deep activism when he was heading
the University of Nairobi,
the Students' Union at UON.
Yes.
Babu is, you know, Babu is a boisterous, energetic, very courageous little fellow, you know. He has that spirit in him. But he also has problems, and serious problems. Many times, and I say this, you know, anywhere where we give opinion, problems sometimes stem from childhood. So there are a lot of Kenyans, if you look at how they were raised, if you look at the schooling culture, if you look at the reprimand, and maybe Wakili, you and I need to have, as we analyze this society, a lot of people are walking around with very serious psychological scars. A lot of, and these now manifest themselves when they have some money, when they have some power.
Sure.
You know, so if you look at, do you remember there's a clip going around of President Uhuru chastising Babu in State House on some things that he had done. It's a very agitated clip. And he's like, kijana wewe, apana cheza. Because Babu can literally do anything. And some years after that, someone with a family, someone with a wife and children, someone who's an elected member, can just pull out a gun and shoot a human being like a fly? I mean, who does that? Why would you do that? And so it's extremely unfortunate.
Okay.
And what's more unfortunate is the attempt to shield him. You know, you can see any clear political party that is worth its salt would have long ago moved hard against him and de-whipped him, but that's not happening. They're just playing careful. Number two, Moses Kuria. I also worked with Moses Kuria at a different station, also from civil society.
Okay.
Moses Kuria is smarter than he looks. So he makes a lot of, and the one thing that's consistent with Moses Kuria is his hate for Raila Odinga. If you look at the things he says in black and white, I will circumcise, I will lead, I will go to his house, etc. I will know pangas, etc.
It's a personal hatred.
That is enduring. That will not be changed by anything. And so Moses Kuria is a volatile guy.
Okay.
He's a force that can be for good. He's not a dummy.
Okay.
And one thing, as I wrap up, I can tell you is that one thing, obviously, that cost Msando his life was also lack of strategic thinking. That he exposed himself as an arbiter to be leaning one way and underestimated the threat. That on this sensitive thing, if you touch, you could die. And that is really unfortunate. It's really painful for someone with a young family that he completely underestimated the threat. You see, he was kidnapped, they had him for a while, you know, tortured him, etc. That is really, really unbelievable. I think we're making our wrapping up remarks.
Yes, actually, that is it.
There is nothing I can think of better than to be born in a year. For example, Linda, 1985. And you see that year in another century.
Charles Njonjo.
Sir Charles Njonjo, 1920.
Oh,
and to see that year in another
In
century
another
at
century.
2020.
100 years.
Yeah, he's a man that I know. I just cannot think of a better gift in this life.
100 years.
So happy birthday to Sir Charles Njonjo. you know, he's 100 years day after tomorrow. I've been tweeting about this for the last couple of months because I've been sitting in my house thinking, Jonjo is going to be 100 years.
You should have come in.
Some of us were tired at 40. Actually, I do have a nice pinch time Jonjo suit. So happy birthday to the former Attorney General.
Yeah.
And his love for the well-tailored British shirts.
Yes,
that is,
and also wildlife. So he was in Uganda
Yes,
yesterday.
he's
I'm
in
seeing it
Uganda.
reported
He has
all over.
some taste.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Final
And,
comments, Mike. And,
wow, happy
yes, let
birthday
me
to
come
him
to
and
you.
God's
Okay.
blessings to you.
Let me say my final comments. And let me begin with Chris Musando. At the very least, this country deserves to know who killed Chris Musando and why. For the sake of justice and for the sake of posterity of this country, he came from a family, and he was also a family man.
Yes.
And even his children will need to know who killed their father and why. And for purposes of this country, we have very many unresolved murders that we keep piling up on top of each other. And I think it is important for this country to make a clean break from this kind of shady record that you can just die and your death just goes like that. And people forget about you, and that's about it. So that would be my greatest inspiration, to have this matter resolved once and for all. I don't know whether Kuria will carry out his threat of telling us who killed Musando. If he has the information, please let him give it. But it is important that whoever did it be prosecuted, so that justice is not only done, but seen to have been done. That's good for posterity.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
I think that's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Linda, I would want to the viewers also to, because the judiciary has come under attack for the longest period now. But we will want also the nation to know how the judiciary operates. Magistrates and judges don't just handle cases and pronounce their judgments from nowhere.
Yep.
Right? And the reason why I'm saying the judiciary has been under attack, you remember the president on Monday, was it Monday or Tuesday? He started comparing the United States,
yes, the
Akasha case and our judiciary in Kenya, saying that nyinyi mumeshindwa, our judiciary is failing because mumeshindwa kufunga hawa and another
huku kwingine wamefungwa.
Huku kwingine
Haraka sana.
You also had the anti-corruption. I mean, what do you call it? Is it the CEO?
Yes, Twalib
Mbarak saying that they have had many cases. They have evidence which is overwhelming, but the judiciary has failed to pronounce judgments by convicting these people.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm saying this is because let's not look at the Akasha cases only.
Okay.
The judiciary, so many people have been jailed because of dealing with drugs and many other things.
Okay.
But we look at the little that they have not done. Well, it is regrettable and unfortunate that some cases have not gone the way we may want them to go. But I will tell you, whether we talk about the corruption or not, but I would also want to come in defense of the judiciary, because they handle cases depending on the evidence on record. Not what they know, not what the public is saying outside here. And if the police or the DPP does show the investigations and brings evidence which is not waterweight, then definitely that case will fail. So it is all about the evidence that is on record that convicts a person in court and not what is in the
So
public
what if I'm smart
domain.
enough to conceal evidence?
Well, if you conceal evidence, how will the court know?
Investigative bodies
It is the
to get to know.
investigative bodies which
What if I'm smart enough to wear gloves so they don't leave my fingerprints? This is also where you guys kind of go wrong.
Depends on now how
Unfortunately, they say the law.
investigations.
They say the law is on us.
Okay.
And it must be followed as it is. That is actually, it is written.
That's why we are things up here.
And it has to be as it is.
As it is.
And we didn't talk about
So-
Sometimes it's a court of law,
It's
not a court
unfortunate.
of justice.
It's
On
unfortunate.
that very note, we
Meanwhile-
wind up by enjoying.
Potassium. We're
And there
going
you
bananas.
go.
You can
Yes.
see that thing is.
Thank you so much,
bananas
gentlemen.
ripe.
Senior
Very ripe.
It is ripe.
To
yeah.
our viewers, they are bananas, but they are few, so they won't reach everyone.
I wish my wife could have one.
We'll bring more.
Let's
take
get
to
to wind
one
up.
this
Let's
one.
get to wind up, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Benji Jolo, senior political analyst. Thank you so
Benji.
much for the bananas and
Wish you a
also
good week. Thank
for
you.
the
Most
great
welcome.
insights. Michael Leo, public policy analyst, on my father's left and in the middle, right after
Next
Ayub
time
and
we
lastly
bring
Mugabi
mangoes, we have
Laichena,
lots of
who's an
mangoes. I just
advocate.
remembered.
Yes.
no,
Oh, you
in
should have started by mangoes
In
if they're
fact, in
coming
school,
from
they
that
used to call
side
me
of
Mango
it.
Master.
All right,
So I'll
thank you
bring
so
some
much.
nice
Thank you
mangoes
so
next
much
time.
for keeping us company. We've come to the end of the show. My name is Linda Alela. We're doing
My
this
name
with
is Abdul
Ayub.
Abdi.
Yes, we're seeing you again.
And,
Ayub,
he's
really.
getting busy, yeah.
Who is the Mluya here, sincerely speaking? We get to see it tomorrow, same time, same place. Do enjoy the rest of your
Today is
viewing.
not shake.
It's not shake. Today is Wafula.
not shake.
Wafula.
Today is waffle.
Thank you.